Guess we got a list of things to do today, but, they said the, are we taking minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What's that? I make a motion, we accept the minutes of Wednesday, March 28th.
I second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Good. Okay, you're from the Felton field? Folks from the Felton field?
Yes, we are.
Oh, please.
He's not here. We took off the last of our chairs.
Took it.
Somebody stole them.
Now there's no police here anymore.
Can't keep anything with no police, so. Kathy's birthday Saturday.
So is the Larry's.
She's got,
He's gonna be 29, I'm
Thank you, sir.
28. Is that right?
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Something close to
It's the
that.
what? 25th, right? Is it the 25th?
Yeah, pretty much. Reason why we're here is pretty straightforward. Here, long-time Felton Field's been really looking pretty shabby down there. And actually, I've been hearing a lot, when are you gonna take those trees down? Of course, by the same token, I've heard, you're not cutting all those trees.
Right.
Two sides to the story.
But if you really look at the trees, the rotting, there's a whole 1/3 of the tree is cut out for the power lines.
Right.
It's a disaster.
Mhm.
So we've been wanting to do this, and we finally decided to go ahead with it, of removing the trees, and then we'd like to put up a fence, not just replant the trees, because those trees were planted way too close to the road in the first place.
And too close to each other.
And too close to each other. So we want to take them down, put in a 3-rail fence.
That would match the rings that are there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For aesthetic purposes.
And not not vinyl. We can get away with vinyl on the rings because it's just a boundary. This way here with 4-H gonna be there and stuff, they can use it to tie their cattle to. It would be much more useful to have a fence that's wooden and more rugged.
Mhm.
It's
So
a
how
safety
far
net.
back from the road would that fence set?
Just maybe 20 feet, at least 20
Yeah.
feet, maybe more.
We have to work around the fire hydrant. a
Yeah.
little bit.
What if I do
We'll probably have to jog around that a little bit, but there's gonna be plenty, so that the plan is to put a fence, maybe, and then in the interest of neighbors and whatnot, continue some sort of privacy for people,
Yeah.
because it would be quite a difference to have all those trees gone, really, all of a sudden, and nothing. So, if we plant like an arborvitae in front of each post, that'll be 8 feet apart, and,
It'll be some time before it fills out.
Mhm.
right, and, that'll give some, a semblance of kind of privacy there. And then, when that's done, then it's gonna be, have to remove all the stumps.
Mhm.
We can't just stump grind them because it's kind of mounded up there.
Mhm.
And if we just stump grind them, then it's still not useful. So we'd have to actually remove the stumps and then level that area out, and then we figured we could use that for parking and people could park
Yeah.
into the fence, or at an angle.
Sure.
And that would alleviate a lot of cars taking up space in the field. Because right now we have functions and people are parking along the road. And they're gonna park there anyway. If we don't make it parking, they're gonna park.
Right.
I think it'd be better rather than plant grass and try and have something to mow and take care of. We'll just level it down with, probably have to put in some gravel. Probably not much, because all that is a gravel pit anyway, pretty much. And utilize it for parking.
Basically, we tried to put in this letter everything that
Mm.
we would like to do in the order.
Mhm.
which we like to do it.
Yeah, and the tree removal, we got, these are low bids.
I have 3 bids for everything here. These are the low, these are the low
Good for
bids.
you.
We were shocked, because the first bid for tree removal was 17,000,
Mhm.
and we said, oh,
Uh-oh.
Wow.
we're in big trouble.
The second one is about halfway in between, and this was the lowest.
Mhm.
Now, it says the total cost of the project is 45,900, and then you say what you have in your account, what you're requesting. That only comes up to what, 26. Where's the other?
Well, we'll really do what we can.
Got a raise.
Yeah,
If you
well,
would like to give us 45,000, we'll do the whole thing, right now.
you know, this is, we haven't come to the town for money, I can't remember when.
Right.
I've been on the commission
I
for
can't never
30 years, and
remember.
I've never come.
Maybe 35 years ago, maybe.
I think the
Well, the
bathrooms.
bathrooms,
Yes.
when they put the bathrooms in, maybe
Mhm.
that came to the town for money.
Mhm.
So,
So I wanted to ask for more, but I said I better not, because living with the superintendent in schools, I hear a lot of.
so you're not gonna deplete your account to take it, correct?
We can't, because that's our operating
Right,
expense.
so
Right.
the 15,000 that you're requesting,
Mhm.
And we're also, right now, waiting to hear from Fidelity or Barry Savings.
Mhm.
They have a grant, they're
Mhm.
giving grants, and we've requested money from them.
Excellent.
And I've actually, we're hoping maybe to get the fence from them.
Okay.
I think it's wishful thinking.
Do you think
Gotta
it's
try.
something for us to ask for more?
Well, when do you need
no, but
the money?
if you need this
Fiscal year
project done,
19,
Well, the project,
Yeah.
after
15,000
July
the,
1st,
the trees down, and fence
So
installation.
it'll have to be,
right? For us,
If
we
we get
have-
the grant,
If we
then.
did that, it'd have to go with fiscal year
Right.
19, I think. Yeah.
Right.
the 15,000 won't even cover the fence.
No,
Get rid of the trees.
Get rid of the tree removal,
right. Well, see, I'm,
tree planting, and the arborvitae's be about the size of it.
We wouldn't cover the arborvitae's, we'd cover the tree
Right.
removal and.
Well, if you got 15,000, 5 for the tree planting, 5 for the
he's just over
arborvitae's,
15.
and 5 for the, well, 6 for the, if you're close. For the tree removal, tree planting, cost the new trees.
Well, what I'm hoping for is between Fidelity and the town, we'll have enough to remove the trees and put the fence in.
Mhm.
And then I figure it's gonna be the trees and, stump removal is gonna be a slower
Separate
procedure.
thing, sure. In a year.
So the fence isn't gonna go where the stumps are?
No, no, no.
Oh, okay, so you can, you don't even do all that digging before
The
you.
fence is gonna
Okay.
go another 15, 20
Okay.
feet from the stumps.
And who's gonna come to 4-H, you said, or
Yeah, Worcester County 4-H is gonna have their big fair there.
are they gonna use any other time except for that one time, do you think?
The
They're
4-H.
gonna have they're gonna have a horse show.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't know. They probably will, but that's just, it's just talk at this point.
It's a big move for them to move. from,
Yeah. Yeah.
national.
It is huge, 'cause I think they've been there for, what, 60 years?
People from 4-H would probably donate to help.
Well, they already are.
yeah.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yes.
See,
Are they doing
Wait,
the Patisi building?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
okay.
doing the
They're
work on
already
that.
doing that.
Yeah.
They're
Oh,
making
okay.
a lot of.
It looks nice.
Help
Oh,
there.
good.
They're gonna, make some big repairs.
Good.
Already done the stairs, some new stairs, windows,
Oh, they're gonna do all that?
paint the old
Oh,
inside.
geez, I guess
Yeah,
it's-
they're doing a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
We're-
nice.
We're gonna be, we've got a dumpster down there, getting rid of a lot of stuff, and they're planning on painting all the inside.
Oh, great.
So we're pretty excited about
Mhm.
Now, I had suggested when you were at the selectmen's meeting to have a fundraiser for some of this. I'm sure people with Felton Field being historical in the town and everything. You know, even a raffle. Raffle's bringing a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that too.
You know, maybe somebody, other parties in town would help with that. Maybe the business people would help, you know, with,
But I mean, it is town. You know,
Yeah.
you hate to have to,
well, you'd like to say yes, but we don't have that much money either.
well, we will do
So
what
we're,
we can.
Maybe it'll be a couple of 3-year projects,
Yeah.
trying to get it all done at once.
Well, that's why I'm only asking for 15. You know,
Be
I'm
ordered
hoping
into
if
the-
I could get the trees down and the fence up this year and then do the rest maybe next year.
Well, I think that where we stand now, Ted, we're kind of taking in all these requests and stuff now.
You know,
We
we haven't
haven't,
got over everything, because stuff is still fluid, but I
you
think
know, we still have the school, we're meeting with the police, the DPW. I think those are the bigger ones we have left.
soil and water.
Well, I think the police house, you've been selling raffle tickets for a new cruiser, haven't you?
Maybe.
Someone
Do you need
sells.
any more information than this from us? This point?
Nope.
What was that?
I said, do you need any more information from us at this point in time?
I don't think so. I think you've pretty much covered it here.
Okay,
Very good.
all
Excellent.
right, thank you.
Well, thank
You're
you very
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
are there other grants out there, like besides the bank? Would there be other grants for that type of thing?
There is,
Andrew, do you know if there'd be any other type of grants that they could use for that? Where
Really have
it's
to
a,
look into it, I don't know any off the top of my head.
yeah,
I can try.
could,
Well, if you do, let us know.
if you could, yeah, so you
Thank you
know
very much.
where to go. There must be some.
Hi, Chief. How's it going?
There's grants out there,
How's the new building going?
but you gotta go look at it.
It's nice.
Good?
Very
Like
nice.
it?
Yeah, you don't get 'em.
The heating and the cooling working all right?
Well, we're learning how to.
Okay.
You know. It's not as easy as just turning the thermostat.
I know.
Yeah.
These days, they make it more complicated.
But yes, it's wonderful, it's great. fun.
No problems with the driveway? Getting in
And
and out?
actually, today, I
When-
started sliding sideways because I backed down.
Today?
a little bit and stopped because the oil came out.
Oh,
You know,
Yeah.
But,
wow.
I didn't have any trouble during the winter. so. I just learned not to back down and stop in the middle of it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Let us have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna preface this by saying when I'm done, you're going to think I'm insane. But there's a method to our madness, and I've been working on this with Andrew. We've been working together for a while. What I wanna try to do is explain to you that, last year when I came before you, I was looking at a budget in terms of, you know, just a general budget, and you'd said, well, that's great, but by next year, can you have it in our format, you know, more directly in our
Right.
format? So I have lined everything up.
Mhm.
And as I've gone through the year and a half that I've been here, I've tried to figure out why it is we always come up short in all the categories. And of course, now I've had 12 months to watch how, but I would start by saying that we're underfunded in every single category, but you wouldn't think we were, you know, because I think that the money that you give us seems to be that, as if it's gonna be enough, and I figured out why it's not enough. And it's not enough because we have contractual obligations that they just end up falling into categories like salary or overtime. And, but they're not really. They're things like certain holiday incentives and things that the guys are paid every year. And they've never been addressed. You just, you know, you give this number for overtime, and it seems like a fair number, and I'm not arguing that point. But not taking into consideration, because nobody's brought, I don't think, has brought it to you before, that number is full of 10,000 for this contractual obligation, 7,000 for this contractual obligation. When you get down to it, there really wasn't any overtime money to begin with because there's all of these items. So what we're trying to do is identify all of that. And the other part is that at the end of the year, if we came up short in an area previously, say supplies, then the fix would be give the police department X number of dollars because it came up short, put it all into the overtime account, and then just filter it out. But we never really grew the individual accounts. So after a while, they're 6-7 years behind the times in terms of just even keeping up with the cost of supplies going up or something like that. So we tried to identify that. So I'm going to give you numbers, and they're going to seem rough, and then we work from there. But I don't want to ask you for an underfunded budget. I want to give you the real picture and then, leave it to your mercy to see where you're going to, cut it back.
Well, generally, we leave it up to the supervisor of the department to
Well,
do the cutbacks.
Well,
Generally, that's what we've done in the past.
Let me explain to you, I can't deliberately ask to be underfunded in an area.
Right.
So, I'll give you the,
Yeah, good run through it here anyway.
so my salary is, well, I'll give you guys, do you have my numbers in front of you?
Yeah, we do. This is the
These
current.
look like different sheets than what we've got.
Well, you
Are
have
they?
your sheets too. but-
Oh,
So
okay,
mine-
'cause that's what we're working,
Right, my
that's
numbers,
what we've got.
These ones that are in that bucket?
Do they tie into these?
So these are,
yeah, I just have them in bigger.
Yeah.
it's the same,
Bigger, easier
it's
to
the
read,
same
so-
numbers, they're,
Yeah.
it just hasn't broken down.
So,
As long as they tie into.
so my
ours.
salary is 82,191. What we've come up with for the sworn salaries is $630,013.49, and that's based on the contractual numbers. So there's a large increase coming from that, and I think that's a 24% increase based on the contract.
Let's see those
Where,
numbers. Where are
we
those
coming up-
numbers?
Yeah, where are we coming
Where
up
are you
with
getting
that?
We don't
them?
have those.
Can you help us with that, Andrew?
We don't have those numbers at all.
I'm coming up with this number. You have, this is, if you take out the deputy chief's salary, if you have the deputy chief's money separate,
No, they-
The
That's
sheet
added
I
in.
have, chief, has lists all your offices, including the deputy chief, including yourself.
this right here, right?
372.
I can't see that too far away.
and that totals 372,930.
Right.
Yeah, 372.
That is,
Or
that's
is-
just the patrol.
Yeah, that's
Is that just the
patrol.
patrol?
Yeah.
Because it says total salaries on it.
Sorry,
Right.
that should be just patrol. Patrol plus deputy chief plus chief. And then the
Is-
administrative assistant is not apply.
And that's, so,
Okay.
I don't have the administrative assistant included in that number, but the number for the deputy chief, myself, and all the officers incorporating the raise for fiscal 18-19 is $630,013.49. These are the numbers you and I came up with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So,
What was the increase?
the increase is,
Percentage.
the new contract. The
And
contract
what was that percentage?
Well, it's so the contract is designed, it's a 2% increase, I believe, the first year.
Right, but that's in FY19 is the first year.
Right.
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 Okay.
I'm sorry, FY18. is the
FY18,
first-
so
is
it's
the
already
first year of the
happened.
contract, FY19
Well, we
is
have to pay
the
back.
second year.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's already,
Right.
since it's already happened, we have to pay that back.
Right.
And then there's a new salary schedule. We've gone to a new schedule, and it increases the rate of pay, basically shrinks down all of the years, so that we never, the issue being nobody ever stayed to make the 22 or 23 years it takes to get to the top pay, and everybody leaves because the initial pay is so low that you train them, get them to go to the academy, and they're gone. So we've pushed down the rate of pay into 6 categories. So they'll come up to top pay in 7 total years, I think, roughly 7 total years.
Okay.
So there's more money up front,
Mhm.
and it still leaves them being paid, it leaves them being paid less than the competitor, but it brings them much closer. Right now,
Mhm.
there's a difference that's astronomical, so you bring in a young officer and they're gone. So
The competitors though are larger cities and so on, right? No?
Just our-
Just towns?
towns right around us.
Right around it, okay.
Yeah, we're not losing, I mean, we're not gonna try to compete
Right.
with Worcester or something like that. We're talking about Spencer and,
Yeah.
you know, towns that are taking all of our guys. So we are at a very low pay rate, and this addresses that.
So you
that's-
said it was 680?
630.
That makes you back.
Yes.
Because I was trying to add up these to see where
He's got
that
a-
line
he's got a
total
sheet.
comes,
That is, right.
compare it to this.
Anybody else want?
Yeah.
Same.
They got them, okay.
Thank you. Richie? Thanks, Chief.
That's different.
You have a thing.
See, that's not broken out the way ours is. They match the number. Well, that matches.
So, looking at this, I mean, like, for instance, the sergeant's pay went up 22%.
Yep, that's what this new contract will cause, one bump in the second year of the contract, 22% for that rank, yes. So basically what happened was, you did a sergeant, so in the Barre Police Department, an officer is here for, say, 6 or 7 years.
Hmm.
And then another guy comes in, he makes sergeant in 4 years. The patrolman, because the way the old scale was, and it hadn't been changed in so many years, the patrolman was making more than the sergeant. And we've changed it around so that whenever you make sergeant, you're always making a percentage higher than the highest patrolman can make. So, again,
I see.
so we're trying, so there's a staff sergeant and a sergeant, used to be a corporal and a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
So we've changed the ranks so that they're commensurate with the agencies around here. Corporal is just a dead rank, it's just not a usable rank.
Mhm.
And especially in a regional operation where we have mutual aid, we can't have a sergeant from the state police coming into Barre and having a corporal running the shift. We lose control of the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
So we changed that, and then again, you have somebody come along who's talented, they do well on the test, everybody wants to promote them, and they're making,
Mm.
you know, literally, they get a 25-cent an hour raise, and two patrolmen are making more than them, and that just didn't work. So that's why you see the supervisors' rates of pay, their increase, their percentage is huge. But it's a one-time deal.
Well, that's what I was gonna get at. Now, under the contract for the second and third year,
So the second year has this huge bump, then the third year is 1%, and then we expect all contracts after
it
that.
levels off then after that.
Yeah, after that, it'll be normal contracts with normal percentages. We had to do something to bring to keep our guys.
Sure,
You know, so,
I understand.
we just don't wanna keep losing. We've got good, talented, young guys right now. We don't wanna keep training them for Spencer, really. You know?
Don't they have to give back though? If they go to Spencer, don't they have to pay us for the training?
Not until today.
Oh, until today.
Right, we just got we just worked it out with the union and worked it out with our labor attorney to have a pre-employment contract that they have to sign that says if they leave before 3 years are up, they have to pay us back the training
I
costs.
thought we had that before, but anyway.
I wish we had.
Yeah, we did have something, there was something about that before, when they went to the academy.
Well,
So too.
Was that different?
none of the guys that
We're covered under
were
that.
working when I first got here were covered under that. So maybe they had it and they stopped using it a while ago, I don't know.
No.
Okay.
It wasn't in the contract.
Hmm?
If it was
It
a,
wasn't in the contract. right?
so if it was a supplementary thing, it may have gotten lost in the weeds, they never brought up again.
But none of the guys were covered, we had guys,
Yeah,
we were
what's too
fortunate.
bad.
We're fortunate we didn't eat any academy costs this past year, but we came close, so.
All right.
So the 630 is the sum of everything above it, right, Chief?
The 630 is, no, it doesn't include my salary, so
Okay.
if the top portion, just look at that as I'm breaking down all of the different categories
Yeah.
that go into
Add up.
salary,
Hmm.
and don't add mine, don't add that top one,
Yeah.
because when you come down, you see my line again, and then police department salaries, and there's the 630 number, and it incorporates everything from line 2 down to the one that says extra holiday pay.
Yeah.
Any of which I'm happy to explain to you how those costs are built into the contract, with the exception of the overtime. the 83,000, that's strictly an overtime estimate that we'll be, we'll be working down, I'm sure, to a lower number, but
Is court time at the same rate?
court time is at the overtime rate.
Overtime rate.
With a 4-hour minimum, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
Now,
so-
the career incentive,
Right.
we have 8,000 on our
So
sheet.
let me break that down for you.
So is that including something else?
I will read to you what is covered in career incentives. Let me just, career incentives are degree payments. So this,
Quinville, the old Quinville.
Yeah.
so this is, we have hired more officers this year, and maybe they didn't have everybody listed down, but this accounts for the couple of new officers that we hired that have degrees, and my expectation to have completed my master's, which would jump me up $500 more before this contract year is out. If I don't, then we'll say $500. So we hired Officer Ryle. He's got a bachelor's, so there's 2,000 more.
So Andrew, are these sheets aren't updated with his numbers?
They are, they're just presented in a different way.
What
What his numbers are, he
Because
has a-
on
he has a
ours,
more
career
detailed-
incentive says 8,000. And he's got 9,500. So I'm wondering, what's the difference? What's the 1,500?
Let's see, we've got Officer
We were
Davis.
sit down yesterday and the numbers worked out, so I don't know where the difference is, so.
Well, it's printed on our sheets as 8,000 and on his is 9,500. So there's a $1,500 difference there, somewhere.
Maybe they weren't added in, these new officers.
That's
To our
what I
sheets,
wanna know,
yeah.
what the difference is.
Right.
What is it?
I think the difference would be, you probably have me at my bachelor's degree and I was projecting, and Officer Ryle, I believe he just finished and went from an associate's to a bachelor's, and that would probably be the difference. He just completed his degree.
So that's gonna be the new number, 80, 95.
Sorry.
But Andrew
What I
should
have-
have had
What I
that.
have yesterday is 8,000, so.
Okay,
But that's gotta be the difference from Officer Ryle and my projecting my master's.
because this is what gets us confused, when we don't have exactly what it's, the difference.
Right. Well,
Updated.
I understand that.
And then you start looking at the other numbers and saying that. Now, where is the deputy chief's
The deputy chief,
salary? Where is that included?
so he is included in that 630.
But which line item is he in?
All right, so when it says police chief salary, and
Yeah.
on these sheets. The deputy, I see the deputy chief on the sheets that I have, which are like your sheets, second line down. Mine is first, his is second, and then all of the.
I'm looking at your numbers,
Okay, so mine.
because I'm trying to tie your
Right.
numbers to this number.
So in the 630, right?
Yeah,
That incorporates the deputy chief's pay.
but it's not
Well, he's
lined on
502,
a
right?
separate line.
He's 502.
Yeah, so it's
Okay,
under the
so
sworn
he's in
officers.
the, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down, deputy chief included.
Good. We haven't technically reached that agreement, so he's not.
Yeah.
I'll have to break those apart.
We went over what we're paying, what we're projecting per officer, and we're exactly equal, so that number's gotta be the same when you put it all together. Just went over that yesterday.
Now, the administrative assistant, is your number got the 2.5% in it?
I put a 2% on
2%, okay. Because I was on our sheets, doesn't have that.
it. Right, if you look
Chief,
at,
did you give them a copy of what you have?
yes,
They all have that now?
if you look at, it
That's-
says the percentage across from her name.
Yep.
Yeah,
2%.
Or across from her title.
yeah. Because see, we have 31,665,
Right, that's
On
what she
that
made
sheet.
last year, so then I figured in a 2% increase that.
because I thought Andrew had already done a 2%
no,
when you
there-
did these
There was
sheets.
65
But Andrew took them out.
You took it
Pull
out,
them all
yeah.
back out.
Oh, you took them out, okay. I knew you had done something with the things, okay.
They were in there for the first round of the budget, but once we figured out what the numbers were, we had 0 holes in it.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that may be in there, it may not. It's not in ours, but it's in his.
Well, in his separate sheet.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what the difference is there.
This sheet, these are the original ones you gave us, first ones, in this booklet, we handed this out at the beginning of the year.
Oh, yeah, that's,
And now have that 2% COLA in there.
Well, the ones that you have at the beginning of the year do not have, are before the finalization of the contract. So we don't have a contract, nothing in there.
I understood that, I'm talking non-contractual people.
Yes,
Correct.
Amy.
The very first-
One of it is the Amy.
The very first,
And the girls upstairs, so,
Correct. Yeah.
so then when those numbers in here that we got have 2% COLA.
correct.
Thanks, Rick.
so the total is 816.7, right?
Well,
That's everything except,
no, I expect to back some numbers out while we talk, so it's not really my goal. What I'm trying to show you is, if I add everything together based on coming up with contractual obligations and showing you what, you know, what I expect,
Mhm.
I'm then saying, maybe we can cut back in a couple of areas
Mhm.
and still be okay. But these numbers that I've pulled out, those are pretty close to absolutes, so we have to keep that in consideration. Also wanted to, so,
Yeah.
if you're ready to hear some of that, I
Yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
mention a couple things to you. So in our supply budget, basically what we have to do with the supply budget is we have to fund the uniform allowance. And the uniform allowance is a big hit.
Mhm.
So it looks like we have a ton of money in there, but everybody gets $1,225 a year for uniforms. And that's for uniform replacement.
Mhm.
So automatically, and it's going up $50, I believe, in the contract. 50, so automatically, that money doesn't belong to the town. You know, the officers use it to do their uniforms. So take that right out of there to begin with. And then if we hire an officer, and I've spoken to you guys about this
Mhm.
before,
Mhm.
it's $3,000 to outfit a new officer. So we hire 2, knock another 6,000 out of there, so you're knocking, you know, basically 10 and 6, and then look at what you have left to do supplies for the whole year.
Yeah, we're overspent in that account now by quite a bit, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we had the 2 guys come in and
Right.
so so what we think, what I would like to see is I would like to see that money not really be in my budget to begin with. In other words, not all the supplies, but when it comes to outfitting an officer, when it comes to, I think that I should get, that money should be somewhere else and maybe you want to explain, because that's really your end of the.
Well, one thing that we don't currently have in our budget is any sort of reserve fund. Anything that is not already in somebody's budget right now, we have to go to, you have to go to town meeting in order to take out stabilization. So one thing that we'd like to try to do is establish some sort of reserve fund, but obviously, you know, budget situations dictate how much we can really do on that.
And what you're saying is putting uniforms in there?
What we're saying is basically putting if we create a reserve fund, create part of that contingency to say that, all right, if we were to hire an officer, our protocol would be to go to the reserve fund to pull the funding for the uniform from that, rather than keeping it in the police department's budget and then in the next year come in and say, well, you completely expended your uniform budget, but you didn't hire any officers. So,
My understanding, on a reserve fund, it's there for emergencies only.
the reserve fund is not,
That one too?
is not for a
That's-
specific appropriation. So it is at the discretion of the select board and finance committee to.
Right, it would still come before both of these boards before they could use it though. So it could be used for any incidental unexpected expense. So if the chief goes in saying, I got a full slate of employees and I'm comfortable, I got a good feeling they're gonna stick around through the whole year, but then one or two of them leave and he's gotta rehire, he's gotta come up with the funds for the uniform. But rather than just giving him 6,000, and then he ends up not needing it, now that's money that's just gonna roll back into free cash. Rather than sitting in the reserve fund that could be either applied for if it comes up, or maybe we run into something else where another issue comes up in town, which might be more like you're saying, emergency, whatever, that we could say, you know what, we can throw 2,000 at that and fix it till we deal with a capital investment, or we can do something to get us through the fiscal year without going back to town for full.
It's a problem.
But maybe you're only putting 10,000 in that account that covers all these various potential issues. So it's like you take the 6,000 out of this budget, and that could land on the reserve fund. Other than he already knows he's gotta hire a new officer, because he's already short one vacant spot, if I'm correct still. So a minimum of 3,000 is gonna be needed from his budget, but I'm just bringing up thoughts.
Yeah, it's basically your contingency fund.
Your reserve fund, the way the town has done it, and from my understanding, what I've been told, is it's for emergencies only, not for a uniform. That's not an emergency.
It's a
You
contingency
budget,
fund.
you budget it
The
in their
stabilization
budget.
fund is kind of is more of your rainy.
I'd
day
like
fund.
to see you come up with a reserve fund, what,
Mhm.
from the general laws,
Okay.
the finance committee, before we did anything on that.
Okay.
Because that's what I've been understood.
So, I understand what you're saying. Let me give you the other side from where I'm looking at it. Tuition for the academy and uniforms for a new officer. I'll ask for them every year, and the town might give me, a total of, $6,000 or $7,000 to put two guys in the academy, and $6,000 to give guys new uniforms, and then I don't hire anybody, and there it's in my account, and then, I have to spend it out, otherwise next year you won't give it to me again.
Right.
I'm saying,
That's not the
That's
case.
not-
Well,
No,
no,
that
it's
is
the other-
not the case.
That's the way it works. I know,
So all
They
the
give it
things
to
we're
you
doing,
again
vehicle
next
maintenance,
year.
That's the way it works with the school, I know, right?
Right.
Well, what I'm saying is I'd rather be operating my supply budget and tuition budget on real numbers. And so if you can come up with a contingency account, put the tuition money and the new hire money somewhere else, and so it's not a real number for me, it's a maybe number, and what if we had to hire 3 people, then I didn't guess high enough, and if we hire one, then, we have all this money tied up that I'd rather not. I'd rather come to you for it and not have it in the budget. So that's the first thing. And then this inflated, this, wow, look at how much supply money you have, really isn't. And the number for for uniform allowance, just to add to that, is right now, before the $50 increase per officer, it's $11,025 that's already spoken for that we have to contractually give to them.
That is contractual to them, yeah.
That's contractual,
Okay.
so out of that 22,000 or some number, it's not really, knock it in half right off the bat. And if we obviously get hit with, like, moving into a new building or something where we have to buy more supplies, and I get to turn and say, well, just so you know, 11,000, that's not really there. It's, and the guys are
But you
great.
really have to spend the 11 every year though.
Yeah, well, it's in their contract, so
Right,
they,
right.
they come in
Yeah,
and they
so,
say,
so that wouldn't be in the contingency budget.
no,
'cause-
no, I'm saying that, right, contingency would be tuition and new
Right,
uniforms.
okay,
This,
New-
I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just explaining to you that
yeah.
this, I guess between Andrew and I just want you to understand how much of this big number is real and how much of it is already spoken for.
Yeah,
And we'll probably push it into its own line item so that it sits by itself at some
Right.
point.
There you go.
yeah, I think that makes sense.
That's where you see a number of new account lines in here, labeled contractual allowances,
Yeah.
so that way you know that that's money that we've already committed.
I can see you wanting to put it into an account, but can't we put it into account that's for uniform that will roll over each year? If you put it into an article, it will.
Well,
Especially.
however you do it, I'd just rather come to you and.
I
ask for
just
your
don't
money.
like the reserved,
Right.
I don't
Calling
like
it
the
reserve
idea of
fund.
putting it into for the chief to be sitting there saying, well, if I get 3 officers, now I have to give them all new uniforms to start. And then we go back to a reserve fund transfer. That really doesn't reflect exactly what his budget requires.
yeah.
His budget is gonna be, I would say, underinflated. The way
Yeah,
things the way it's
because
been going now, if
uniforms
they
are for
run short,
police. Mm-hmm,
we come to the town meeting in June, it's like snow and ice.
mm-hmm.
He runs short, say you have 5 guys quit. All of a sudden, oh boy, you gotta give them each $3,000. You have to give them the money to get them when you need police officers here, so you pay for it out of somewheres in your budget, because you're gonna be short. And then in June, we reinstate that money to your budget. That's how they do it with snow and ice. But if you do it the way you want,
Yeah.
you're not showing that in your budget. You're saying, here's my police department budget, but then, oh, by the way, if 5 guys quit, I'm gonna need $3,000 apiece that we'll do out of reserve fund transfers.
I see what he's saying. Historically, it's gonna be harder to track what you actually spent on that.
No, you
If
can
it
track
doesn't land
it.
in his budget.
Right.
Right,
Because if it's in the reserve fund,
that's for
it's
anybody.
probably never gonna be tracked in that reserve
No.
fund spreadsheet saying this money was spent on. And be easily tracked for review each year in a fiscal year. In other words, where did the reserve fund get spent last year is not gonna show up in this, when you're
No.
reviewing it for next year's budget. Unless we talk about
Well,
creating a separate spreadsheet that would have that detail for you.
the spreadsheet's supposed to show what the expended from the previous fiscal year is. And that's despite the amount that's transferred into from other accounts. I mean, that's really what you're doing at the end of the year, is a balancing act between other,
Into
yeah,
department transfers.
other departments, really.
So the
whether it's
reserve
snow and
fund
ice,
would be a
it's-
transfer to this account.
Right, it's a
Not a
separate-
payment for something
You're talking
in lieu of.
about, the reserve account is basically a separate account that's not tied to one specific department. That the finance committee and select board can say, we're gonna take from this money to move over, rather than just anticipating that we're gonna just dump a bunch of money into the town hall maintenance account. Know that we're not gonna spend all that money, and then we're gonna use that money to balance off everybody else's budget.
More likely than not, this is gonna work in the favor of, it'll work against me because we won't have turnover anymore. And
And this is-
I won't be tying up the money at $6,000 a guy with the idea that they might leave, which is what I'd rather it be that way.
And I
The thing
think
is-
earlier
You're
you
not
stated
tying
that
up anyways.
you got something you just enacted now about if they go to the academy and then they quit, that they have to refund the town's portion of that money.
Their training costs,
Is there anything in there about the uniforms reimbursement?
No, because when they leave, we keep their uniforms.
Their old uniforms,
Right.
but you won't reissue them to other people.
You get into there's a certain
Size.
problems with that. You, first of all, they have a contract and they're a new hire, and it requires that we provide them with,
So what do we do with the old ones that you take back?
well, what we do is we try to use them as best we can. So when we bring in the part-timers, we make them buy their allotment. But because they're coming in and they're just starting out, they've already paid for their part-time academy because we don't pay for that. We will give them uniforms from this stash of uniforms, which is not really big right now because we just changed over this uniform. And then make, you know, then as they buy their uniforms, they give them back to us so we can kind of keep a reserve, so we can bring a part-timer on and
I
get them
see.
going. And then as we expect them after so many months to start buying the summer shirts and the winter shirts, we get it back. And then there's, you know, the instance where something gets ripped and the uniforms take 6 weeks to be replaced. So they will take that and we'll put it on the guy, you know, that's the full-timer, and we'll let him have that shirt until he gets his in and he'll give it back to us.
You see.
That's good. So in other words, then each year, you would tell Andrew, I might need this much money in a reserve account, and I might not.
Yeah, and it might just stay there because I
Well, he
know,
doesn't know, how to,
What we're looking at is, you know, where are our exposures? Obviously, this has been a big exposure to us over the years because we lose an officer, it costs us $3,000 to replace that officer.
Right.
We won't put that in our budget anywhere. And,
Right.
but if we were to put it in there, and then we were, at the end of the year, it's just kind of sitting there, you know, it's kind of like, oh, well, how come we're giving so much money to the police department, but they're not spending it?
right.
Then it's under bigger scrutiny. And we could have an emergency fund, you know, somewhere else in the budget that money could be used for. You know, This is, you know, the idea, the laws governing reserve funds is under Chapter 40, Section 6, that allows you to put up to 5% of your operational budget as far as reserve. We put 0% in a reserve fund right now.
We now.
We right now put 0%.
Zero.
We are allowed up to 5% of our operational budget under
Yeah, because
Chapter
we
40,
didn't have the
Section
money to put it in there.
right,
That's why we stopped.
yeah, exactly.
Because we were running with a reserve fund.
50,000.
Now, you can't say that, when you look at the budget, the account at the end of the year, you look at the police budget, you know where he's spent and where he's got money left. You were just saying you wouldn't know. Yes, you would see uniforms, there's 6,000 sitting there at the end of the
But
year.
I think I was the one that said you wouldn't know, because I wasn't thinking about how he said the reserve fund would be a transfer to the account, so it would still show up.
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking
No, I'm
about
just
the way
saying,
it
I
is
thought I was
right
the one that said
now.
you wouldn't know. I just didn't want to put words
Right
in
now,
anyone's mouth.
you would see that on a line item on the
Well, the way it's actually,
report
Set up
that
right
she
now.
gives it out.
Yeah, only if the clothing line was a separate line
right,
item.
if
This
it's
is,
its own separate line.
Yeah, well,
This is
that's what
fun.
I would say.
well, it's bunched in
I
under
thought it
expenses
was.
generalized, I think, so
Correct.
you wouldn't see it.
So this year, we didn't send anybody to an academy, and we have money that's been sitting there, so it's gonna end up going towards like a vehicle maintenance thing. But the fact is, we didn't send anybody this year to an academy. That's good for us, but we had the money in the budget for something that was like a guess.
Yeah. Oh, that's what this is, I guess.
So now,
Yeah.
so any other questions on these line items?
Nope.
So we were talking about some of the places where we think we give it a shot at going with less, and we were talking about the, when you go back to the line item that's on the upper group, it's part-time shifts. We have 41,000 part-time officers, and it's fill-in for holiday shifts. I put in 41,000, that's a number that breaks down, if we have to fill a certain number of obligated shifts at that given rate, then we're gonna need 41,000. But if we don't have as much, because we get, say, our 6 part-timers in, for example, instead of having 3, and we don't have to pay as much out for full-time overtime, we think maybe 30,000, we could bring that down to 30,000. For the overtime cost, where we have 83,000, that's a number based on a 3-year average, that's where that number comes from. But I think we could get by with 40,000 if these other areas are funded, because like I said earlier, we're spending a lot of our overtime money on these other areas. Now I've identified them, we could back that down, so that's backing out 50,000 right there.
So what is extra holiday pay? Is that like if a full-timer worked a holiday?
So if, yes, if a full-timer works a holiday, they get an extra 4 hours pay for working that holiday, 4 hours straight time.
Plus time and a half when they're working there.
Well, they get, if it was not a holiday, they would get straight time. It becomes time and a half, so you add 4 straight hours to the 8 straight hours they're working. So every time they work, they get an additional 4 hours pay. That's what makes the time and a half.
Okay.
That's times, you
How
know.
many part-timers do we have now?
Well, we have 4, but we're considering one for a full-time position, which brings us to 3. The Board of Selectmen has allowed us to bring our number back up to 6, so we put the ad on the website and all around the police channels for part-timers, and we're interviewing right now for part-timers.
There's another $9,000 a uniform.
No, they have to buy their own.
Part-timers.
Part-timers have to buy
That's
their own.
where he said he takes the return uniforms and uses them to get a part-timer going until they can buy their own uniform. Because they don't have the same, they're not,
So the only
They're not
ones we have to
represented under
outfit
the
are
contract.
full-timers.
We have to have, the guys that are contractual full-time officers, we have to outfit them. The other guys,
Part-timers are on their own.
right, we were, I mean, the practice was to buy them some of the part-timers, some of their stuff, but I don't feel that. I mean, they're coming here to
Right.
make money.
So the
Yeah.
cost savings
And
is
to
to
get
pull
their
a
foot
part-time.
wet and start up the ladder.
Yeah, and maybe become full-time here.
I said, so the cost savings is to hire a part-timer up to a full-time position.
Yes. So they already have uniforms, so if we bring this guy in, I won't be coming to you for, I wouldn't come to you for contingency money. It wouldn't cost me $3,000 to outfit a part-timer who becomes a full-timer, because there are very few things I have to buy them, so we'll save money there, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And also the part-timers take away from a lot of the holidays.
so I instantly want to fill that part-time position with another part-timer, because it's a benefit to the town every way you look at it, as long as they're competent at doing the job.
Right.
So you wanna get that number up to 6?
Yes, the part-timers, that's what we're allotted. I'm at 6 for a little bit, but, I've considered a very good thing that we might be moving a part-time up to full-time. These
Yeah.
guys doing
Yeah.
well, so.
Having trouble finding part-time people?
No, we're not. We have a deluge of people applying right now.
Good.
You have what, sir?
A deluge. They're walking the door every day.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Glad to hear that.
me too. You know, it's nice to walk into that new building.
That's
People
what
wanna
it
work
is.
there. you know?
That's what it is, yeah. Good. All right. So,
Our part-timers have been working, the ones that we have, they've been working so many hours, they've really been helping us out.
Now, Chief, a part-time worker is not just when he's on a crew when they're fixing the wires or stuff like that, he's actually doing police work.
Sure, so we had an officer leave to go to another department, and we plugged the part-timer right into his schedule pretty much 4 out of every 5 days at part-time rate. So we save, it saves our skin, so we need those guys.
Good.
So Chief, can you give me a total of all your expenses? Dispatch,
We don't have,
full-time, part-time,
It's the 816, right?
what?
It's this 816 here.
Well, I don't know, I wanna hear it from,
so I'm saying we could take 50,000 away from the 816.
total request for FY19 is what I'm looking for.
Right. Bottom line.
Correct.
I was wondering if anybody was gonna say keep the 50,000 in there, so I just wanted to pause.
No, we would,
Just wanted to be sure. So we're talking 766, 776, 79. You want to check my math?
what was it again?
766, 776, 79. Just double check that math. Yep, that's what I guess I'm doing.
And what would you think would be a good estimate to put into that other account for the uniforms?
I don't think you'd be putting,
We're only looking if we get to the point of creating the contingency fund. Because we're just saying that, you know, if we can say we have this we can reasonably expect that this might happen, we would.
I understand that, but you gotta have some idea.
6,000.
There you go.
2 officers. Yeah.
so it'd be, if it was gonna be contingency for tuition and uniforms, I would say 6,000 one officer, because maybe this year we won't have to hire more than one guy. Right, because that would be 3,000 for the academy, 3,000 for the uniforms, which is actually the academy cost. They keep raising the price on that. Tuition for the academy, yeah, that's right. We've got it at 2,000.
Thank you, Chief.
Well, thank you.
You're really getting to the bottom of this, Chief. Congratulations. This was a hell of a jungle. All right, and I'm real happy with what you're doing.
Anybody have any other questions?
Seems to be more realistic, that's for sure.
That's right. I mean, good.
That's why I wanted,
Yeah.
I had concerns about putting that money aside for the uniform. We need to keep it realistic.
Yeah.
You know, it's like one of the things about uniform, if we went to a fund, is then I would be submitting a request that would tell you one Holston, you know, one pair of boots, you'd actually see it, it wouldn't just be a number anymore, you'd see exactly how, and that I think sometimes helps people to understand what it is and feel comfortable with the number, as opposed to, wow, that's, you know, what's really in that, but it's, you know, one suicide strap, 2 belts, and I think that's helpful to the townspeople to see that and know exactly.
Absolutely.
And that would be required.
Yeah. Status of your new car.
Yeah.
We think it's gonna be on the road next week. We'd like to get it on the road.
What did you get?
Dodge Charger.
You did?
We did. It's got an incredible number of new safety features in it. And they give you a $10,000 discount under the police service package discount. So it was a good
What was
deal.
the total on it?
Well, we haven't, the car itself was about 26,000. And then you have to outfit it. We have to outfit it, and so since it's a new car, and besides, things change every year, they make sure that,
Cage.
they make sure that the cages go obsolete every 4 years anyway. So, new cage, and, but it's got safety features that Dodge put on it. It's got, this car, when you're parked, the backup camera turns on, so the officer can see behind him. If somebody creeps up behind the car, an alarm goes off, the windows go up, the doors lock,
Oh,
right, automatically. So these are, and it's all-wheel drive, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to think it's gonna be at the field for the car show this weekend, but maybe that's, you know, a little bit.
oh,
So that's a 6. Those are 6, right? Those 6, V6 engine, you know,
Eight,
with the
no, it's
four.
an 8.
It is.
It's
I didn't
a-
think they had 4.
Heavy.
So you can only get that for a police officer.
Oh, I was gonna say, I didn't think they made them with a
Right.
V8.
It's a special suspension package, and yes, I'd love to personally have one, but you can't buy it unless you're a police
Uh-huh.
officer. So the resale value on these, when you do get rid of them, is yes, because people want them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because they, as far as I know, they didn't make a V8 with all-wheel drive.
Right.
Hopefully they got a good transmission. I don't wanna put a transmission over
Yeah,
here.
well, so it's a 100,000-mile warranty on it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Chief.
transmissions are,
Especially Chrysler. What's next?
School department? Yeah.
Let's get to school.
Yeah, because we got, Jason's gonna be here.
Here, what?
Oh, my goodness.
One meeting to another.
The
My goodness.
I have someone else to be at 7:30, so I'll take him off the next.
Oh, he's dictating on what we're doing.
He's gonna tell us what else.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
You wanna take it next?
That's up to you. I was told 6 o'clock, so that's why I.
Oh, okay.
uh,
Here, what, sorry, one with
It's
this.
up to you. I can come back another night, not a big deal.
If you don't mind waiting.
Go ahead,
It's
Jess.
not like we have a choice.
Larry's more than welcome to go.
I asked if I had something.
I'll go way to start off.
It should be quick anyway. How is everybody? Excellent.
Which shoes which?
You guys want to start with?
Yeah, highway, I guess.
Highway?
Why don't we, yeah, why don't we do that?
All right.
That might be so.
I have one quick question, Jason.
Yeah.
How does the 65,000 for the fuel?
How's
Well,
65,000? It seems to be working pretty good. Fuel prices look to be staying pretty stable. There is some talk about fuel going up over, I think it was $120 a barrel again this summer. But we'll see what happens. Like I say, right now, the fuel price has been stable and we've had, a surplus in that account at the end of the year. So, it looks like we're gonna have a surplus in the account at the end of this year. So I think that'll be sufficient unless something drastic like that does happen to him, Yeah, exactly. Everything is level funded. The only thing that went up, if you see, is obviously salaries, contractual for their 2%,
Yeah.
and also step increases.
Okay.
Kissing on salaries.
Yeah.
On my page, at the bottom number, I have FY19
Yeah.
total. Can you just give me the total, please?
The total for highway salaries, 409, 199.
Say that again a little slower, please.
409, 199.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that what it says on your sheet?
No.
No,
It's not?
That's what I had.
Yeah.
And the
That's the
column
first
that
thing.
looks a little highlighted,
I got other ones.
This is the last
The
one.
one there.
Yeah,
409.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it was.
Yeah.
yeah.
The only other thing in highway is uniforms went up too, because of the union
Do you
agreement.
see?
That was very minor, and dollar amount as well. It was $100 per person, that went up. And the one other thing that I wanna talk about in highway is we have a grant for a generator to be put in down there. I actually spoke with Andrew about this, and what I would like to do is put the money, the way that grant works, the state reimburses
That's what
75%.
the 2%.
So it's an $80,000 grant. So we would like to put the money in the budget to cover our 25% portion. What happened with the last one we did with the water department is all of our in-kind services, us doing all the site work and tying everything and everything like that, covered that amount, so we didn't have to spend any
Along on
money.
this one.
It should, but I wanna make sure we're covered, cause it might not,
So
because
you
this is a
need,
lot
you need how
simpler.
much, you said?
It was, I think it was 17,005, I don't have that with me.
Well,
I
Is
thought I
that
had
the
my
grant
note.
that Heather got, Jason?
It was,
And I
yep.
thought that you said by the town preparing the pad site and digging the trench for the wires, that was gonna be the,
It all depends, because what that goes by is hours worked and materials and stuff like that. So, some of it we'll have to spend in materials, but as far as the in-kind services, the equipment, the labor and all that stuff, that's not gonna cost us anything. So that will go towards that 25%. But I'd like to have it all in there just in case something happens and we need to, go ahead and do this.
Where is that? Where is that on?
It's not on here.
Oh.
It's not here. When I
Right.
put that, I put that in the town barn.
I wonder I couldn't
And
find
it
it.
was, like I say, it's 17,000. But I just wanted you guys to know what that would be for, but it is not in here. I actually just spoke to the engineer about what the amount would be, because I didn't have any paperwork on that, because like I said, Heather was the one that set that up originally.
Okay.
Snow and ice, we're gonna keep that the same. I figured that was the plan.
What are we doing this year? How much we up to?
This year was pretty much double
Yeah.
for materials and overtime.
Yeah, when you look at it, it's a hard, about 150 off the top of my head, I think it was 141 the last time I looked, but that was
Yeah.
before we had those few kind of squall storms, so.
So it's 150. Oh, I thought it was gonna be more. Okay.
150
Over,
Over.
over.
Yeah, so
So
you're
over
really,
the
you're
105,
like, well,
right.
300,000.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm thinking about. Okay.
Now, I heard Ted requested the commissioners be here, I've seen that here.
They were all asked, they said that they thought I could handle it. They needed me to-
That wasn't the purpose.
Did the commissioners vote on
Yeah.
these?
On these budgets?
Yeah,
They have seen them, there was no votes taken.
so they didn't discuss them at their meetings and take a vote to,
We haven't done a vote, no. Usually we come and see if you guys want us to change anything, and then we go and do a vote.
So they all turned it down to come here?
What's that?
They all turned it down to come here?
They all, I talked to all of them, and they said that, yeah, they thought I could handle it. They didn't see why
They
they
were
couldn't do it.
requested to be here.
Yeah.
So I think you want to let them know that we expected them to be here.
that doesn't matter.
They- yeah.
Yeah.
Did you need them or something?
Yeah,
Well, maybe
we
someone
wanted
had
them here.
questions.
What do they mean?
If you have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
When they're asked to come to a finance committee meeting, they should come. At least one of them.
We've got 3 here,
You got the highway department covered.
right?
That was the water and sewer.
Anyway, any more questions on this highway department?
You guys let me know what you have for questions.
Any?
I want to ask you a question. Why is this budget so late coming into us?
So late coming into you?
That is my question.
How was it late coming into
It
you?
was supposed to be, what, January 1st?
December, it was asked for in December.
Andrew and I had spoken, there was a level funded budget, so I kind of figured you guys could carry over 400,000 from one
Well,
column to
at
another.
that time, then why didn't you submit it at that time, level on the budget?
It was?
Well, you needed to submit
It wasn't on,
the
It wasn't on the
FY19.
it
Google,
wasn't on the sheet.
yeah, it wasn't on the
So-
Google
So
Sheets
now we have
page.
it on the sheet.
Right,
But we didn't, as of January 1st, we didn't have any budget.
no, you never do from us, this is January 1st.
Well, we, Andrew's trying to get things organized.
Yeah, Andrew and I have been
So-
talking about the budgets.
For next year, could you have it done by January 1st? Or whatever?
No.
Sure. No,
No, I
you
mean,
can't.
There's no way to know what numbers are going to be. I mean, I can give you a number that means absolutely nothing, like,
Well, the police department
yeah,
gives us a budget,
yeah,
and everybody else gives us a budget. Because a
Yeah.
budget is just an estimate of what you're gonna
Exactly.
spend.
yeah.
So we request a budget in January 1st. I mean, Andrew wants to keep everything, organized
Yeah.
and upfront.
Okay.
And that's the way we like to do it. And if your DPW doesn't feel like it, maybe we ought to go to their meeting and ask them why they wouldn't have you do the
Come on down.
budget.
I'd be
Good
more than
idea.
happy to have you.
Okay.
I'll look at the other one.
Uh-huh,
Sorry, we'll make sure we're on the same page.
okay.
The budget, we've never, like you say, it's a level funded budget. Every
No,
number's
we
identical
appreciate the
to-
fact that it's level funded.
Right,
But we've
But the
always gotten a
Yes,
budget
we've always had
submitted.
budgets.
If it's just the sheets with the same numbers,
yeah.
but for FY19.
You're the last person to submit. Just so you know.
Best
Just so you know.
last.
Just so you know. Okay, let's go on with the other
Yeah.
departments.
Parks and Commons.
Parks and Commons next?
Mhm.
Parks and Commons was identical, actually, absolutely nothing changed. Let's see, what did change in there?
Just the same.
Just the cemetery got added to it, cemetery employees.
Right.
But everything stayed the same as far as what the cemetery numbers were and what.
Are they part-time people, Jason?
What's that?
The cemetery people, part-time people?
They're full-time, but they're temporary
Or
employees.
I mean
Yeah,
temporary, just for the
employees.
summer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the
okay.
summer, just the same as the Parks and Commons.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one?
That's good.
What do you want to do, water?
On the line?
You want to do parking?
All right.
you know, water or sewer.
What?
Let's do mine sewer. There we go, Andrew's keeping it.
Which one, you want water now?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, water's the same thing. The only things that went up were salaries and uniforms. There's absolutely nothing else in there. You have those numbers, Rich? No?
Total request, I got two of them, I got total request and then request number two.
The only other thing,
It's only $1 difference.
right. Yeah, there was, I forget which number that was, I changed it. The only other thing in water is the pumping account. That was the number that the administrator's office changed last year on us. And we're actually gonna have a shortfall in pumping for that reason. I asked for 68,000 last year and they gave us 40,354. So that is gonna go over this year. And I put 68,000 back in, because that's a real number, that's what we actually spend on electricity for.
That's
the 12
electricity.
months. Yes, pumping is just electricity for the wells.
So you're saying that's gonna go over?
That's gonna go over, it is over right now in that account. We will have enough money in our budget to,
Unfortunately, I can't hear you too good, because a lot of people are talking behind me.
On this sheet from the treasurer, it says you're zero, you haven't spent any of it, as of the 31st.
that's because they were taking it all out of the wrong account.
Okay.
So that has since been corrected.
What account were they taking it out of?
I believe they were taking that out of operations. That's why the operations took such a hit on the sheet there.
Okay,
Um,
right.
I do believe we will have enough money in that budget to cover the difference come into the year, just be, into the private transfer.
Right, gotcha.
To cover it, so that shouldn't be an issue. But I would like to put that number in there as a real number, because that's what it actually costs us
Yeah.
to pump the water.
It's an actual cost.
And that was it, as far as changes for water.
Good.
Hello.
That's really nice.
Jason, just give me your
Yep.
total for water, please.
Total for water is $492,990.
Okay, thank you. Just wanna make sure.
Yeah, is that right on it?
Anything unexpected coming up?
Water? For water, no, nothing unexpected, hopefully, nothing unexpected coming up for water. We do have some upgrades we would like to do. We have some loans that are gonna be paid off in the near future. So that'll be something we'll be talking about once that takes place, probably trying to keep the debt about the same and taking another, either state revolving fund loan or whatever Nancy and Andrew come up with for low interest, that we can do some water upgrades. We have a few projects that are already engineered and we'd like to get done. It would save us a lot of headaches if we get those done. Areas where we have issues all the time, we're always digging and fixing, and, it never fails. So that's,
Would one of them upgrades include Christian Hill, Jason?
Christian Hill would be one of them, yes, sir. Williamsville Road would be one, Trafalgar Square, and Salona Square as well. Those are all upgrades that are already engineered. We would like to, Mechanic Street is another one that's already engineered. And then the end of Wheelwright Road is another one we'd like to.
Must be almost all new by now.
It's getting close, 20 feet of the way. Every time we dig down there, we put a full stick of duct line in. It's very bad down
All right.
That's sewer, right?
there. Yep. Sewer's the same thing. The only increases were salaries and uniforms. The only other increase in sewer was, we're in the process of doing a SCADA upgrade. SCADA is a system that runs the plant, you know, computer system that keeps track of all the inputs from all the different sensors through the plant. That's in the process of being upgraded. With that upgrade, we have to do, it's a proprietary company. Hawk is a company that makes these sensors and everything. There is gonna be a software upgrade that we have to do. That's $14,000. I actually plugged that in under equipment, parts and repairs. You'll see it went from 43.6 to 57.6. After we did that, talking to Tom, didn't go back on and change it, but it probably make more sense to put it in the computer internet expenses, because it is a software thing for that SCADA upgrade. So that's the only other increase as far as wastewater goes. Everything else was.
Can we get
we did well.
up at the top of the page of our pages, the department says water department? Should say sewer.
What's that?
Say that again?
The printing page on,
Which page?
the water, it's supposed to be sewer department and it says water department, cause it says total sewer salaries on the bottom.
Why I didn't know.
Yeah.
How come I got, and it's in my packet.
Maybe it's just stapled.
It's in, no, it's the sewer budget.
Say that again? I'm not following you. Which page are you looking at?
This is supposed to be the sewer, the stapled thing you gave me.
Yep.
It says on the top of it, water. But at the bottom, it says total sewer salaries. And the numbers he's talking about, it's on the sewer.
What's the sewer?
Is this it?
You got a special one.
I don't know how I got this one, but the department says water department.
Yeah.
And see how down here, it says total sewer salaries.
Mine says sewer.
It says water up there. This is the number, 196.
You know,
What's the number? Yeah, for sewer salary total. Should be 263, 296.
Nope.
no,
190.
196,
So that's the
990.
water, that's the water.
Yeah. 196,
So-
990.
How come it says
That's
total
right, that's
sewer
wrong.
salaries on the bottom of
This
it?
is,
Oh,
this
The
is.
bottom's
spreadsheet.
wrong.
Needs a correction on the bottom.
Okay. Okay. Well, I didn't know what was what. Top, it says one thing, bottom says another.
It's a little
The
confusing.
wastewater salary should be 263, 296.
Yep.
We'll fix that. I'll do that right now.
Easy fix, right there.
It just confuses you when you've got
Yeah.
two things on one sheet.
When you see it.
I'll fix that right
All right.
Uniforms, like you said, went up. And then 14,000 was the only other thing.
Spell checking. What is this one?
All right. Any other questions?
Any questions on this?
Not for now, no?
No?
What's
All right,
sewer
thank
plan
you.
on giving us this year, Jason, look at that?
I plugged 50,000 in,
Let me
Rich.
see your
The,
sheet.
we just actually got
I don't know.
the amount that we have in the accounts last week. So we haven't had a
So
sewer meeting
this-
since we had
this
the
is
actual dollar
water
amounts in the enterprise fund.
It's been 75,000 right along, hasn't it?
We used to be 100, then it went to
How are you
90,
supposed to know
then it
what's
went to
what?
75. Last year was 75.
Do you wanna drop it to 50?
That was what was talked about. They haven't voted on that. So obviously, I know we have a big chunk of debt that's coming off from sewer this fiscal year.
It's actually gonna be next fiscal year that's coming up. I know, at least in my preliminary budget run tonight, John has actually increased it up to 100. And then once that debt exclusion fell off, you guys would actually get a true enterprise. You guys would be able to 82,000.
It's gonna be covered.
Yeah, so at least that's all our provision.
Yep.
So you're requesting 100,000, right?
I'm requesting the increase of 25,000.
Right,
Up to 100.
Up to 100.
right, and Jason said he plugged in a number of 50.
Of 50,
Yeah.
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 Like I say, we didn't have any exact numbers. We thought we were under 200,000. in the enterprise fund for wastewater, because of all the money, you know, that goes out every year, and it's not covering.
What is
Um,
it?
It was 232, Rich, I believe, don't quote me on that 100%, but it was over 200.
Mm.
So, now that we have that number, they may be comfortable, you know, going up with that number a little bit, but again, that would be up to
So that is that,
to
right?
them. Right, that covers their debt.
I don't have any other questions, just that one.
Yep.
All set?
All right.
Thank you.
Tree warden as well, you guys want,
Oh.
that was 5,000, it's been 5,000 for the past 2 years, that was just a little, yeah.
We
okay.
still have to, 1,000 that goes to the maintenance.
1,000 goes to the maintenance of the bucket truck, and there was a couple of expenses for the truck, they had to replace the boom for the towns, it got cracks in the fiberglass portion of the boom. So they had to replace that this year, so there was a few other expenses. The truck's still working out good, we actually have it right now.
And how'd that work out with that replacement of the boom? Was that put through all the towns?
It was, yeah.
And what did that owe last year? Do you remember offhand?
I think what it did is it actually cleaned out that $1,000 that we put into the account.
Mhm.
So they were talking about asking for a little bit more so they can get that back up. Because the 1,000 that we put in from all the towns every year just sits there
Right.
until something happens, it goes for service and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then if something like that happens, luckily there was enough in there, but did pretty much complete the account, so they're talking about asking for a little bit more. But the 5,000 will still be more than enough to cover that as well.
I just looked up last year's budget, the booklet at town meeting, it was $68,000 voted,
For which one?
water pumping.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
That's not what's on the Google sheet, and that's not what's on Jean's list that she sends out every 2 weeks.
So actually,
Huh?
maybe not a little check.
Yeah, in the book, I just checked it, it is $68,000, and that's what your request was, and
That's
that's
what
what
my
it
request
is, so.
was. In the
And that was
budget.
33
Yeah,
cents
that's
on
it.
the prior year.
This the one?
I think so, the one Jean sends out.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah, this is what you
Oh, you're looking for sewer?
Well,
Oh,
actually, that's water.
This is water. Oh, no, I need water.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, you're right.
Pumping water, right?
Yeah, don't mind me.
Water pumping says.
We do pump sewer.
It's all water, just depends how clean you're talking.
40.
It says 40, but town meetings, booklet says.
Right. And on the Google Sheets, it said approval last year was 40,000.
Because we carry it from, actually, I don't know where that's carried from.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, let's go.
So that's something we'll have to look into, because that is,
Because the book is correct,
right.
so I don't know.
So you might not have to increase that much.
It might be a little.
It'll be the same, that they'll, if
It would
it
be
is
level
68.
funded if, we gotta figure out why
What
it
is-
came in at 40,000 before, not the
Yeah.
other number.
Right, but what I'm saying, last year was town people appropriated the money that you're requesting this year.
Correct.
Exactly, yeah.
Correct, so-
According
There will
to
not
phase,
be an increase
it won't
in
be an
that budget.
increase, exactly, yeah.
Well, we gotta figure out why
Where it
wasn't-
went.
what happened, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's just double check it.
Yeah, we'll double check that, yeah.
Jason, are you fully staffed down there now? Do you have?
We're not, we have, our foreman's still out with an injury,
Hmm,
hopefully he'll be back in another few months.
okay.
And we have one water position open, we have
Okay.
a water person that left. That hopefully, we're gonna speak to Andrew, hopefully be advertised, early next week, and we'll get that position filled.
Okay, good, thank you.
The new highway guy get his license, Jason?
He has not yet.
Oh,
He hasn't had an appointment yet, no.
And when did you guys hire him, Charlie?
It was, I can tell you,
Looking at
December,
this,
actually, it's on your budget.
Water usage.
Yeah.
This is 2017. Those have gotta be correct numbers. Those are the
You
expenses.
guys paying him the truck driver labor
See the
salary?
receipts,
Yes.
Hmm.
And he does not have a
300,000
license to be a truck driver?
and then water,
That's kind
bills
of,
went
No,
up.
he can drive trucks, it's not a big truck.
put that truck, but the truck driver labor position
That's a question.
for a CDL license.
Yeah,
Right.
Alright.
We need to go to some of those meetings.
11/28,
Well, they
so he
need to
has
come
until
here.
the
I'm
end
sorry.
of,
Right.
Next
because,
I
month.
don't know.
It's hired in November, the end of
yes, they
November.
do.
Way, what's anybody at the meetings?
Who's on the, who's on the water commission?
He does
Yes,
drive
you
a truck, he
do.
has a permit.
Well, what, don't help him with this winter.
No, No, actually worked out okay, because when you one-ton drivers too.
Yeah, but all right, that's okay, paycheck that's designed for somebody with a CDL license. It's not fair to somebody that does have a CDL. At least get the same pay, you got to pick up truck.
We've
And
done it
it's
for every,
cost.
for every other, not every other, but a lot of other employees.
I've never
They should.
heard
I
of
could
such a
think-
thing
think
when I
of
was
the-
there for 35 years.
Think of the last 3 we hired, we didn't have licenses, and gave them 6 months to get it.
And you paid the truck driver,
Yeah.
labor? Wow.
No, I myself don't see any issue with it, none of the guys complained.
None of the commissioners complained either.
Yeah.
Well,
Those
that's
hirings
wonderful.
were presented to the commissioners, and
What's that?
wage authorizations went before the select board, so none of this was brought up as an issue. Just consider this the means they chose to operate, and we accepted the superintendent's recommendation for why he thought it was the right thing to do.
So you can do it with that position.
He's not blowing his budget because of it, so he's just choosing how he manages his budget within his salaries and so far that hasn't affected his budget, so we thought it was an acceptable choice.
Hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
From my opinion, I can't speak for all the other board or commission members, so I'm not trying to say
I'll be sure
that.
to just transfer all those numbers over for you in January until we have actual numbers, if that
Okay.
makes you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you guys very
You're
much.
welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for letting me go.
Oh, no problem,
You
no
guys have a
problem.
good night.
We're not kind of supposed to be here, so. You're supposed to be.
Well, sort of, I guess. But thank you so much for entertaining us tonight.
Oh, gosh.
We're sort of not supposed to be here, right, tonight? We thought we were, but it could be our fault, our fault.
Yeah, you weren't on the agenda.
We weren't on the agenda. We were on some agenda
You're on email.
years ago, but that's.
Are we
that's okay.
legal?
I think. Are we illegal with the open meeting?
You're good.
Oh, good, okay. Well, I know that you have preliminary assessments from us, and obviously, those assessments are predicated on information that we have from the governor's budget, and preliminary information we have on the first iteration of the House budget. But as you know, they're in deliberations, there's about 250 amendments. Some of those amendments are ours, relative to regional school transportation, et cetera. So the assessments that are before you are probably the same, nearly the same. Cheryl can walk you through.
Yeah, that was like one of the packages to go.
Okay. If we don't, you and I can share.
Need some more.
Just over here for the selectmen. So when we had the public hearing, we were talking about the third column over that's labeled FY19 PP2 228 from the governor's budget. We had a school committee meeting last night, hoping that the House Ways and Means budget would have been released by now. Usually it is around the 24th, and we were hoping to make some bigger adjustments. For the first time that I've ever seen, the Department of Revenue posted the initial House budget before they went through all of the amendments. And there was $31,000 more in state aid to the district. So we did go over those numbers last night, and we did adjust the assessments. Unfortunately, Maureen talked to some people today, and our sources say that the House Ways and Means budget is nowhere near ready. So until it is, we're just working on very preliminary numbers. So those, that extra $31,000, don't spend it all in one place, has been put into the column kind of grayed out. And if you go down to almost the bottom of the page, Barry's assessment is at $5.5 million, or a 4.48% increase over the current year. Some of the things that went into that is that there was an increase in Barre residents, pre-K to 12, so that means that Barre as a town would be taking a bigger portion of the pie than they were last year. And of course, there's an increase, a minor increase in your required local contribution, which is the base of the calculation.
Also, I think you probably have some preliminary budget stuff. I know that Andrew attended our initial meeting, so I know he has a lot of data from us. Certainly we're willing to discuss anything else that might be of import to you. But our budget is up 1.95%. But you can see the fact that there is less state aid, at least projected in the governor's budget, and the preliminary House budget than we received last year. So obviously, the difference unfortunately goes across the table to our member towns. Our budget is under 2% as an increase, and holding our budget there is, we will lose some positions, but obviously we work hard not to come, some high budget and then work our way down. We're at 1.95%. If we lost nearly $100,000 in transportation reimbursements where they owe you, I mean, it's nuts. And so that money, Chapter 71, should we receive at least, a percentage equal to last year's, that should be at the 100,000 or a little more, that is an immediate pass-through to you. So about 38% of that would go off of your assessment, because you're approximately 38% of the budget. So we know that this assessment will, if state revenues, increase in the area of Chapter 71, regional school transportation, these assessments will drop in all of the member towns. So, and well, we'd like to say that we would want to guess what those assessment decreases will be, but that's difficult for us. We will know more, probably hope by the end of the week. We must provide you with assessments, okay, by April 30th. If we have better information, we'll probably put in a letter, but not, the treasurer may come out with the same document, just because technically, until that's, signed and sealed, it's, a make-believe number. But we would obviously communicate with you regarding where are we, what will the assessment be if those, House numbers hold. We have very strong support for regional transportation in the Senate. We really have relatively very strong support in the regional caucus in the House, but we don't have a lot of House members, population-wise when compared to East of 495. So we always, it's quite an uphill battle for regional schools in the House. So really, our issues are dependent upon state aid and what we can hope to garner from Chapter 71. We would expect that there's where we'll get money that would be obviously available to the communities. Chapter 70, we don't see, the governor gave $20 a student.
Now, not to interrupt you, but didn't some of these school districts, aren't they in the process of suing them?
Well, Brockton and others are looking for partners to sue the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
To make them look at that.
Yeah, there are other agencies, even,
Coercion,
the auditor, state auditor did a very comprehensive report on, come on, people, you owe these districts billions of dollars over time that you haven't paid. We've been to all of those meetings. The problem with the state auditor is she, or the state auditing group, has no power to make the legislature do what the legislation, what the legislation says, that they're supposed to pay 100% reimbursement of regional transportation. So, obviously, we're really on the, I think, really on the radar, thanks to the auditor, really pushed that number hard. I will tell you that Representative Ferguson, who's not our rep, but she really is out there swinging for us and in the House. Certainly Representative Berthium is there as well. Senator Goby, who's the chair of in the Senate side of the regional caucus, is working really hard for us. Senator Hines, Senator Rosenberg, and Senator Chandler, who happens to be in a really good spot to highlight, regionals, because Wachusett's taken a huge hit. So we have a lot of, I think, Senate support, which could pull us over in conference if we don't get as much as we need to get in at the House. That leaves us, though, of course, walking into the town meeting together, saying, okay, what do we think's happening? And that's not new. I mean, you know that oftentimes there at Lovel's Lane and saying, yeah, that number is okay. We can go that low. So we will continue to work really hard legislatively, and any help you can give us through the Mass Municipal Association, that's helpful too, to push the idea of regional transportation and just general school aid. I will tell you that we have a lot of highly mobilized parents who are in the State House. They are making noise actually on the floor, as does Wachusett, as do other regional school districts in the Commonwealth. The rural schools out in the western part of the state are really pushing as well. I mean, you think
Good.
we're in trouble? I mean, they are really in desperate shape.
Mhm.
So we're working really hard on that. We're working hard also to see if we can, have better utilization patterns in our schools, because obviously, if you were to say, Maureen, you don't run the schools like a business, you should be closing some. Absolutely right, but I don't get to run them like a business. Everybody wants their school. But we have, we're working with a potential partnership opportunity for the elementary school in New Braintree, which would allow us to shift some costs to a partner who is a nonprofit dealing with educational issues of disabled adults, intellectually as well as physically disabled adults, as well as picking up our kids who qualify for transitional services and special education from age 18 to 22. So we're hopeful, and I had a lot of positive comments from the New Braintree Selectmen tonight at my front meeting, and also from our school committee member from New Braintree, which is very good. I know, Cheryl was here waiting, and I was at another meeting, but, so we're really, really excited about the potential that's there, that will, unburden us from some costs, for example, heat, lights, and other things that we can, pass off on rent, which, because everybody helps pay for every school in a regional school district, so part of that New Braintree operation is visited on every town. So anything that we can do to minimize that and to put all of our students from New Braintree in Ocam, where there's plenty of room for
And
them.
Maureen, you just said that some of those adults that are going there, some of them you said are from our
Yes.
community.
Well-
Where do they go now?
Well, right now, we are responsible for providing those programs. Some of them we have access to a collaborative, so we may send them over to, it's hard to believe, but over to the other side of Leominster, because that's where they're,
And we have to pay transportation?
yes, we do. So we're excited about the fact that our students will have better services, closer to home, and with an agency that has a 67-year, history in the area there, in the Southbridge Sturbridge area now, and have grants to move into Central Mass. And they already have Barre clients and Hardwick clients, and obviously will be picking up the Central Mass
Wow.
piece. So, and they were dancing in the street when they saw that they could have almost the whole school, because they were looking at old, sort of mill buildings, figuring that they had to invest tons and tons of money to rehab.
Renovate?
Yeah,
It
so,
could be tough.
yeah, so we're very interested in that, they're very interested in us, and we're hopeful that we can put a partnership together.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, so it'll be a phase-in thing, because they'll start off with a smaller number, but they're growing so quickly that they went from 21 to 94 in their most recent, well, there's no services for students and disabled adults in our area, there just isn't. They even do special education camps for children that our children would have access to, that they don't have now. They also do adult daycare, and let's face it, our communities don't have access to that, and there's a lot of families that could utilize those services. So we're excited about the potential, and I'm hopeful that we'll have to work really hard with New Braintree, because there are issues within the regional agreement, as you know, that we would have to work either with an MOU, or perhaps even make modifications to the regional agreement, New Braintree would be the straw that stirs the drink in that, because it's their town. But it's a 5-day-a-week operation, so they would be able to use their school for community, their gym and other parts of their building during, off hours. And so it's very much a school environment. It is a school, it's a state school, and there is even a part of on our end of the year report where there's some information about, adult education. So my guess is that usually is for something that's run by both schools, because they have a lot of adult education at night. We obviously don't do much adult education, but this would be an opportunity for for a different clientele within our district to gain services. So we're very excited about that potential, and then we would be up and running in September.
That's pretty good for them too, turnkey operation.
Oh, they're
Walk
just,
into-
they cannot believe the opportunity that would be. And my fear is, we gotta keep them away from Quabog, who has a school that they would like to use. So we gotta keep them away from there.
Bidding war.
Yeah, so not necessarily, because I think that the New Braintree parent group, from what we can garner from, our meetings with them, is they don't really care where their kids go to school. They wanna have a school in their town, but they understand that they've got only 45 or 50 students that would be there next year, and so going over to OCAM makes good sense for them. And New Braintree doesn't seem, at least very preliminary, that they're just saying, okay, if it be a school, we don't get stuck with a building we can't use. And so we're really very happy that this could be a possibility for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, and I really want to commend the the Central Mass Regional Planning Group that has been working with us and the towns. They've really helped us, look at schools and communities and how we work better together, so.
They do a great job.
They have done a great
On
job.
all aspects.
They said they should have an office somewhere with, in our towns, because they seem to spend so much time over here.
They've been a great help to us over the
Yeah.
years.
And there are additional grants. There's grants for, I talked with Janet today, and I said, Janet, there's something where partnering between, this kind of, bringing adult education into, like a school district where there's declining enrollment. She's absolutely, that there, some of those consolidation grants
Right.
could be utilized. So we're gonna, hopeful to maybe even access a little money to do some startup work.
Nice.
So, we'll need some start. But we understand that the 4.48 assessment is tough. We know it's tough, and I'm hopeful to get that down in shooting range for you.
This is our first go. I think this is one of the last folks that
Right.
we've met with on our first round, correct? Andrew?
Correct, yeah.
So you plug in the numbers and
I
then
plug in the numbers and see what works.
and see how bad it is.
Yeah, so,
Got it.
right now it's, I know I had sent you guys a copy of where we're at in the budget, and kind of said, here's where you're at, here's where
Yeah,
would be really kind of a workable,
Yeah.
a hopeful workable number, and hoping that we can work toward,
Yeah.
toward the middle. And
Yeah.
I know that I had plugged in 3% on the assessment, and I know that's kind of tough to say,
mhm,
okay, yeah, the state's gotta pony up and help us out that much.
yeah.
Um,
But
so-
we'll work with you. I mean,
Exactly.
we'll work with you, even walking down into the building if we have. Because the hard thing for us is we can't make up a number. Our budget is very tight down in there with a number of positions lost across the district in order to get there. The cost of regional transportation increases, as does special ed transportation, and that is a state obligation, and they just walk away. And we find that so we're making a lot more noise this year than we've ever made
Correct.
before. So we're hopeful that we'll see something come out of it. And Harriet Chandler has been extraordinarily supportive. Now, whether she can pull it out,
They
that,
have to start listening at some time, you would think.
well, they'll claim that they just don't have the revenue. And they're really nervous that what will happen is in November, when they put on the ballot, do you wanna pay the sales tax? And everybody goes, no, I don't pay that. I'm not understanding that when you don't pay the 6.25, 1 penny of which is going to all mass school building grants, like our roof and our windows at Bubbles Lane, then, okay, they don't have that for that, so we're really nervous. Everybody just thinks, yeah, just keep cutting taxes, and we'll still have all that we
Another
have.
thing that made you a little nervous, I saw an article the other day, is they're banking on, 48 million for the revenue of recreational marijuana.
Oh,
How the
I know.
heck do they know?
I know.
It's
Well,
pretty
I'll tell you, every town in the newspaper is gonna plant or do something with it. I would say, how much can we smoke? How much can we eat?
A lot.
Right, I mean, really, when you think about it, because we're gonna be competing with other states that are doing the same thing. And, I know.
You have to throw a figure out into their budget, how, that is like grasping at straws, if you ask me.
Well,
They don't have a clue what.
Well, because they haven't even given any real licenses yet, have they?
Well,
Not even
that's
for
right.
medical.
Yeah, but it could
Medicals.
be based on those letters
The
of
crooks are gonna drop their
non-opposition.
prices.
Yeah, I know.
Communities, like we granted a letter
That's
of
what they think.
non-opposition, they may be able to take that and say, okay, this is
Yeah,
what
but
this
that's medical,
proposed.
this is recreational.
Right.
big difference.
Well, because medical marijuana is what North Brookfield has, right?
Mhm.
I mean, what they're planning on in there and so
It's
forth.
underway here, the process has started
Yeah, and they're outside or inside medical?
inside.
Inside? Yeah, well, I think people are gonna be really shocked when they see the amount of water.
Well, that's,
Those growing
They
places,
addressed
they,
that with
Yeah.
the water and sewer.
yeah, and in addition to that, how much energy it takes with all the lighting that has to be very specific.
Yeah.
But it'll be very interesting to watch this new, you know,
I just couldn't see they throwing a figure out like that, but I'm like, that's gonna help offset their budget.
well, their revenues are better than anticipated, but I think they're worried about what may happen with Medicaid, you know, as the feds start working with their budget. I think they're worried about tax.
Right.
So I think, you know, and Charlie Baker talks a lot about schools. Trust me, his budget was lousy for schools, really bad. I mean, not a dime more for transportation reimbursement, but he and the Board of Education are allowing charter schools to say they're regional schools and access.
That's some of
yeah.
that funds, correct?
So you have the same pie, and he says, and anybody else who wants to make themselves a regional school gets a cut a piece of it, so that's where a
With
piece of
no
$100,000.
increase to the,
Right,
I think Matt had a question.
oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna make a comment on the estimate of the estimated marijuana receipts. They're not basing it on just Massachusetts, they're
Right,
looking at
Colorado.
California, Colorado, and the records, and then they're taking those numbers and trying to say, okay, based on that standard of living, what's the standard of living here? So they adjust pricing and expense. So, I mean, they're not coming out of nowhere, but it's a guess, because it's true. You don't know what the overall cost will end up, so you don't know what the eventual charge will be, and therefore you don't know the tax. You know, it's, the thing though, what we do know is in Massachusetts, it costs more to produce that,
Oh, yeah.
which means it's gonna cost more to sell it, which means your tax rate will create a higher revenue, because it's just a percentage of the gross sales. So an estimate of taxes in Massachusetts might be higher, even if the same volume of marijuana is happening than in Colorado, because they might not have the same costs. And I don't know, I'm just saying, might be. So that's how they gotta do it. So I'm just saying, it's not just based on who knows. It's, but don't give me, we look at how they budget everything and we still wonder how they come up with the numbers and think they need to do something.
Well, we have mountains of data and information if you need to have more information about staffing patterns over time, special needs placements and how that looks and how it changes over time. And, I would tell you that the number of children entering our school district with autism continues to increase. We are now aging with our autism programs into 7th and 8th and 9th grade. And so those programs have to be built along with the aging of that population. And so those are new expenses for us, the social emotional learning issues that we have. I'm sure you're not unaware of the fact that we used to be, maybe 10-12% free and reduced lunch in our district, and now edging in the high 40s in some of our schools. And 50 in Hardwick, and certainly in the 40s and plus in Barre. And if you ever told me 15 years ago that we would see that kind of a number of students eligible for free and reduced lunch in Barre, I would have said, no. But the demographic has changed for us, the demographic that we educate, the demographic that I know your police department manages, it's different. And our children come to us with moms and dads across our district, who are in rehab, if you can believe it. Because it's not I think you think it's our high school kids on the opioids, it's not. It's our young parents. And our young parents who are unable to take care of some children. And we, in Hubbardston, we have 2 grandparent groups, because grandparents are raising a number of our children. And that's a struggle. And so we do have some grandparent groups. We offer, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Before and after school care in both Barre and Hubbardston. So, and that's all, paid for by users, so we, that is, we're working very hard to make our lunch program revenue neutral, which is a Trouble? Struggle?
I went to a meeting today with Mass Association of Pupil Transportation, and the two numbers were staggering to me. Statewide, transportation for special ed children in out-of-district placements was $180 million 2 years ago. That's the latest data that she had. Statewide, to transport all special ed transportation in district and out-of-district was $310 million.
And you don't get any reimbursement for special needs
I
transportation.
was-
We're
I was
supposed to,
there.
according to the auditor, because it doesn't say
They used to.
only regular day kids. It says any regional school student, transportation for him or her. And if they're a mile and a half from home, technically, there's no reimbursement for them. Many of our children are less than a mile and a half from school, but there's no safe way. I mean, could you fathom the town of Barre from the town waltzing down South Street in the morning to go to school safely with some snowbanks? We just have to put them on buses.
So there's no reimbursement.
And there's no reimbursement for them, so those have to be teased off. And and even if you got 100%, we have to tease off that, you know. And then there is, you know, there is an allowable, some legislation that will allow regional schools to charge students less than a mile and a half that we can't get reimbursement for. But
The law also doesn't make any sense, because you can't have a bus stop more than a mile from the house. But they won't reimburse a mile and a half to school. So those kids that you have to transport, they wrote it into the law that you don't have to get reimbursement for them.
And we discussed that a few years ago
Yeah.
about charging, and we said, no, the safety part is more important. We need to look down that path.
Well, but even if you did, you'd have to reduce that from your transportation
Transportation
reimbursements. It's neutral. revenue
And I just want to make a couple of comments.
Hmm.
Thank you. I know we have been, over years, being fiscally responsible with the budget. We have good programming for our kids, and we really are looking at shared services, other ways of utilization of buildings. And even though you were part of that regional agreement group, it was phenomenal, a 30-year agreement to be able to come to all 5 towns to support it, but to update the agreement. We put the ownership on the towns to close a building. So even though we don't have that authority, we can make recommendations, we can do that, but if we can look at other ways, because we are well aware that if we take a school offline and give it to a town, it costs X amount of dollars that now that town has to pay for and everything. And that's an added expense that they didn't have. So how can we reuse those buildings in a capacity that we could even keep them in operational and to share that? So a 1.59% increase overall. One thing is, we and several members don't feel, and we'll support it as we have, that we have kicked the can down the road on our capital expenditures, the capital projects. And it's at 0 this year. A 0 for the recommendations. You'd have to go further to talk to Cheryl to know exactly what we said, what was on the docket. But through the deliberations was, no, we're not gonna do this, the towns, we're gonna do this, we're gonna kick it a bit, and we'll see if monies can come in. And lastly, yes, there is potential towns, cities across the Commonwealth looking at the adequacy of funding and the funding mechanism for school
School
finances. The problem is, and where we're hearing is, that hopefully the legislature and the governor understands that you can't keep this down the road. A lawsuit will be coming and it will cost you a lot more money to do this, then you may have to phase it in incrementally. If they even phase it in over a 5-year period, it's a beginning and a less of a push to everybody at the table here.
And I think the important thing is if we're successful with the new Braintree partnership, or I should say the quality regional partnership using the Braintree facilities, we really have put in an agency that will hire people as well. And I hate to say, but it looks like, all we do is a bunch of schools. We have Eagle Hill, we have, home's not my favorite, but, and, we're the biggest employers in the schools in the 5 towns. And obviously putting another group that would need personnel intensive. And they will not just, they'll have to hire, and local folks will have the opportunity to work there, which will be a nice thing. And it's one of those, agencies that's not gonna pollute the air, it's not gonna cost a lot of money to plow, or, it's just, they'll just be there coming and going, and, So it's not a lot of burden on New Braintree. It will not change if you call it community, which is so familiar. That's a big thing to them, and it will not change anything. And it'll really add a dimension to our educational, platform that I think is very much needed. And another thing, we've heard that the selectmen have asked us to, look at vocational programs, and so we've made outreach, and we've, the school committee has, we're gonna be working with the Start Company, and we'll be having 20-plus students are gonna be signed up and working through these micro, whatever kind of special tools they are, and getting various certifications, and will be in paid internships at Sterrett in part of your senior year. So we'll be picking up juniors to do that. Brent Bolger is getting the training to do that. We also have a pre-engineering program beginning, which is called Makerspace, which, again, Brent Bolger and some of our science and math people are working on using modeling. We have a new STEM, science, technology, and engineering program that we, instead of having 2 days a week of physical education, we now have 1 day a week of physical education in most of our elementary grades with science, technology, and engineering, so that the kids can start on that. A new math program that was approved last night at the school committee, Eureka Math, that we are initiating. We've been piloting the program pre-K to grade 12. We met a couple of weeks ago with the new president over at Mount Wachusett Community College about, he's looking at some agribusiness opportunities, whatever, because we do a lot of places we can plant stuff, but we're not convinced about that. We do have a horticultural program at our high school, but we have not seen a lot of good things happening there. But Mount Wachusett is working with Stockbridge, so we're
Micro agriculture.
yes, on micro agriculture.
That's that vertical.
I don't know, so,
Yeah, maybe.
so,
Yeah.
we're working with them. We also, next week I'll be meeting with, Mount Wachusett for our, we have a biotechnology program that we got a very large grant for, and modified our laboratories to teach that. We have 2 sections of that, so it's about 50 kids in that. And if you can believe it, they looked at our English curriculum and said, oh, well, we'll accept that. So that's equal to or better than our 11th and 12th grade English program to Mount Wachusett one, so we're happy. And so they will be able to earn Mount Wachusett credits for at least like 1 year of being at the Mount. And go to the Mount to finish up in they have a new STEM book building that's fabulous, and be able to get an associate's degree just 1 year out from Quabbin. So it was sort of a dual enrollment program. So they'll get what Mount Wachusett credits from us. Our teachers will have to be certified as their instructors, and we'll be doing that. And we'll also be doing digital design and animation. And so that's moving to the animation phase is a new thing for Teresa Salvador, and has done a phenomenal job on that. Lots of high interest in that. So we are doing some of the folks. We can't head-to-head compete with the Voc schools because we're not allowed to by law. So I can't have a plumbing program. And I know some people say, why shouldn't you just put a plumbing program? I can't. We could, in a way, because Pathfinder doesn't have a plumbing program, but they're now putting one in. So we can't, so plumbing, woodworking, some of those typical things you find in a boat school, you would say, why don't you people do that too? Not only is it cost prohibitive to put the labs in, but we cannot go head to head and compete with a Voc school because they get all the Chapter 74 preference money.
Is that why the
Even
shop was
painting and
phased
decorating,
out?
that is a bona fide vocational trade, and those are in the vocational schools, painting and decorating, which we could even offer a program to that.
Is that why the shop was phased out up there?
Yes, in 1993, when they did ed reform, they made us, you have to do a thing called instructional hours. And they said, instructional hours cannot include, building a house or plumbing or even business for a while was out. It had to be the core, what they call the mass core, which is world the typical street, English, math, social studies, a real strong academic view. And obviously, as things went on, we have robotics programs, and we have, but I don't have a certification program in robotics because Monitech does. I can't believe that. So at any rate, Monitech, we've had some conversations with Monitech, and so what can we do together? And they're willing to open their labs to us in the afternoon for our kids to pick up some voc opportunities. The problem is we'd have to pay for that time, and it would be from like 3 or 4 to 6, and having our kids think that's fun is, you know, probably not. But we have a lot of opportunities for our kids, and, you know, so we continue to move forward, hoping.
Yes.
Maureen, I had a conversation, it's probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I was at a meeting, I don't know how, it was different finance committees. And there was a girl there that was talking to me from New Braintree, and she's on the board for Pathfinder. And she said at that time, they didn't have room to add things to Pathfinder.
Pathfinder's a very, shall we say, building built long ago and not been renovated
Yeah.
in years.
So she was wondering, I think it must have been when we had the, talking about closing schools and what we can do with it, empty rooms and stuff. And she wondered why Quabbin never approached Pathfinder for them to set up one of their programs.
Like an extension?
Yeah,
Well, the problem you would have there is, they could not send their Palmer kids to us. I mean, they'd have to send, because they have, I don't know how many towns, probably 7 or 8 towns that are all, you know, you probably know better than I do, where Dr. Pace's programs are. They just picked up Ocam and New Braintree and Hardwick, I would say in the last maybe 15 years. They used to just kind of go it alone and tuition their kids wherever they could. But I would tell you that both schools are not interested necessarily in satellite programs. They don't like that kind of competition from the academic regions.
because she seemed to feel that it was Quabbin that didn't want them because they wanted to reach.
I think she came to our school committee meeting once.
She was the person with the sinks. Yeah. And I said to them, please, I'll meet with you anytime. Nobody ever came back.
Because I thought
I see
that would
Dr.
be a
Pace on a
good,
regular basis, and he's never.
good opportunity.
Yeah, he's never said to me, gee, Maureen, you've got space and I don't, ever. He said that they're gonna put plumbing back in. What really hurts those little towns and hurt Barre for a while is kids who choose to go to the agricultural schools. Very expensive. And I think that Hubbardston, Ocam and New Braintree and Hardwick have had 2 and 3 kids a year. It's been really hard for them. They usually get stuck with higher bills for that than they have any increase in our assessment at all. They really have it tough. I apologize for being over here when I'm not supposed to be. We looked at an old agenda.
That's okay.
Okay.
We made it work.
Okay, thank you for being, because
Thanks
Cheryl
for
and I,
coming.
Sorry.
Cheryl and I have been planning this for months. Since January, right? We're on our 25th.
Yeah, because our schedule got a little mixed up, because
Because
of
of snow.
cancellations and moving and.
We didn't bake any cookies either, so.
We made it
We
work.
still want to finish up this week.
We'll, Andrew, any info you need from us, don't hesitate to call.
Okay.
I'll bring it over.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
if anybody wants to take a tour, the new partner we may have for our health programs. We'll be setting some of those up. See our possibilities.
For what?
Working with the group, going over to the schools that they already have operational, and seeing what might be in the Braintree, and how they may really impact communities. We're setting some of those up, so we'll invite you, if you have time. Okay? Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've never seen so many people like that, like a million people. So he said,
So, how are we at in our sheet, summary sheet there?
So consistent, it's still in the process of trying to kind of maneuver everything down. The number I still have in there is at 4.74%, but I'm looking at some different ways of trying to work the numbers. One thing I'm looking at right now, I talked with Jason a little bit earlier today, was the possibility of trying to take his salary and splitting it with the enterprise funds. I know that this, according to him, this was looked at a couple of years ago, but he thought there might be some conflict with the way that the language of the Enabling Act might have kept that from being a possibility. I was going to take a look into it deeper with Jim Barrett. It seems that it should be possible because, you know, his position is really the only non-union position between the three. You know, between the highway and the two enterprise funds. So I kind of want to look at the logistics of that. It'd be a significant cost savings, I think. And I think with the amount of increased E&D that they had over the past year, it shows that they have that capacity to be able to take that on under the under the enterprise fund.
But, I mean, especially in the sewer department, don't they need that E&D for updating and?
Well, that's the thing, you know, they almost doubled their E&D over the previous year.
Really?
When you look at what the E&D certified the year before and the year last year and this year,
Look,
with,
didn't
well,
we
they
just?
had a rate.
Yeah, we just had a rate increase.
Correct.
So
So
the
they
rate
had.
increase wasn't needed except for an E&D?
Well, it just shows that, you know, that the revenues came in.
Yeah.
You know, you kept pretty much a level budget from the year before, and revenues came in.
Okay.
So you do have that revenue in there. I think that if you look at what the revenue increases over time have been, I think that there would be enough money in there
Right, to cover
to really supplement that.
But probably
it's-
you took a small percentage of his time and put it there.
But that's what we're, you know, that's what we're looking at, you know,
Yeah.
if you can take that, you know, $25,000 toward the debt service and $30,000 per enterprise fund to go toward the
Salary.
toward the salary.
25,000 for the debt? You mean add it to the 50?
Add it to the
50,
to the, well, the 75.
75.
That's good.
But he's,
Keep it at 100.
he's plugged in 50.
I mean, if you guys look in your budget sheets, or.
I got too many of them now.
Oh, I know.
Sure, I look at a
Everything
budget
is.
sheet in different towns.
The,
Yeah.
Sewers and water.
there's one here that shows enterprise fund receipt history.
I was gonna have it sorted out.
Right.
They're all mixed up now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
me too.
They were stapled.
I know,
I have these all the time.
I messed it up.
So anyways, I'll trust you, go ahead.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
you have basically what your receipt history is for actuals going all the way back to 2010. These are taken right from the state, you know, right from the state reporting.
Where's that?
And so we saw a jump in FY between FY 17 and FY 16 on the user charges for the sewer from 604 to 643. So our estimated for FY 18 is 650. And then FY 19 is estimated at 663. So I think that increase, I mean, you haven't seen an increase in that, you've seen increases in the sewer rate, but you haven't seen increases in the sewer budget.
I see.
So the rate's gone up, the money's come in, it's gone into E&D and then gone back out as either a capital project or.
So we'll have to check with the sewer commission.
So I think we really
Where
need
they're
to
gonna
look
put it.
at where we're at with our, I just think we need to really look at what our revenues are on the enterprise. I think that there is a little bit of flexibility there, but, you know, right now it's estimated.
Yeah.
It seems to
Andrew,
me
I
that
was
that's
looking
coming
at
together.
this, the water receipts and expenses summary. And of course, it's got 2017. The total expenses were 376,000, but their receipts were 633,000. Am I reading that right? Because that's a big profit margin in there. And they went up on the rates because they weren't getting enough money?
Oh, that's right, yeah, that's my point too.
You know, when I'm on the other end paying
Yeah, fine.
water bills, so.
Yeah, narrow ranges, no doubt about that.
So that would be like 300,000 profit.
Well, that's why I think we need to just, you know, really
Yeah.
look into.
What the
really
heck
look
are they
into it
doing?
now.
You know?
Saving a lot of money.
But
In the
where is
bank.
that money going?
They're putting the money in the
It rolls
bank.
into the free
This-
cash.
And this is where it rolls into
The
E and D.
E&D.
This is where it's rolling into E and D. Or last
Oh,
year you
even
were
though it's-
certified, so, I believe last year they were certified somewhere around 100 and, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, it's on my desk. Maybe $60,000, and a portion of that, you know, so you had 75 of that goes toward toward the debt service. And then didn't they have an appropriation on town meeting
They did on
floor?
town meeting floor, they made a change.
That,
Remember?
that brought another $45,000 out of that.
Mhm.
So you basically
Now,
bring.
that's water?
All
That
sewer.
was just on the sewer side,
This is water
okay?
that I'm looking at.
That number looks wrong to me, Claire.
I don't know.
I mean,
To me, when I look
see
at
the
that,
water?
I say
Double
three
check the
hundred.
water numbers, but I'm just using sewer as
Yeah.
an example.
I was just reading the doctors.
Well, I'm reading the water
I don't think
one.
water had the rate increase this last year. I think
This is
sewer
the
has
what?
had the
Four
rate
fifty,
increase.
430, 508,
I don't
457,
know.
375,
Because I think it did go up.
That was just sewer
budgeted
had the
505,
rate
something's not right.
I think.
Can't vary that much. But I think
I'll have
the
to look
time
at
is to
my-
get those three things worked out, makes sense.
What
Between
three things?
the sewer, the water, those two enterprise, they're supposed to be in full enterprise
Right.
within a year or two, okay? And it's time to kind of organize all that. And if it takes moving Jason's salary over, you know, some percentages to make that happen, don't we end up with three things that are working right?
And I've been talking to him too, you know, and I know it's been brought up before, okay, the town's paying their portion of the bill, you know, the
Yes.
building fees. And, you know, I'm all on board with doing that, but I want to see both sides of that coin. We have $7,500 in town services right here. So the town basically for $7,500 produces the tax bills, collects on all the taxes, does all the accounting, provides the building for this all to be done in.
Right.
So I think that's a pretty good deal for not having to pay a water bill. So, or a water and sewer bill. So I think that it's important to kind of get those numbers really on the table to say, what is the town actually using for services? But what also is the town actually providing for services? And where does that really line up? Because we, you know, because either side can
Yeah.
talk to say, well, you know, we're paying for it, but in reality, what does it really look like?
Yeah, gotta have
I
the
think it
numbers.
seems like with the sewer, not so much as the water, I think more the sewer, is there an enterprise account? They're supposed to be self-supportive. They have, what was their debt last year, $140,000?
You know, if you take into, they have a $175,000 debt excluded bond plus about another additional about $90,000 additional that's in other debt service.
So say 250,000 for round figure. They give us $75,000 towards their debt. And on the other hand, they got enough money in their E&D account, whatever you call it, to go change the budgets at town meeting floor to buy a pickup truck.
Yeah, that,
If they
that
can do
frosted
that,
my
why
big
can't they
time.
be paying their bill? They're supposed to be paying their bill anyways. That's what that is set up
Well,
for.
that's where we're working to, you know, to go into the budget here and go, okay, you're gonna make up $200,000 in your, or $275,000 in your budget. I mean, that's not going to bring this together at once. But I think that the fact that we're so close to paying off that debt service, making that good faith increase to $100,000, the next year it drops down to that $85,000. So now they're being able to pull back and being full self-supporting within the next fiscal year.
Right.
So,
Yeah, but they're gonna be taking another loan out.
But that's when we start having that conversation about how that's gonna be provided. I
Right.
take the loan out, but it's 50, you know, talk about a 50-50 split.
Right.
Come up with an agreement before the loan ever goes out.
cause you can,
Right.
it's legal, Richie, to have an enterprise zone where they don't get everything, the town kicks in a little bit.
Yep,
But that's a beforehand deal, in other words,
right,
you make the deal this year for next year,
right.
all right?
Or the next 10 years,
What?
or the next 10 years.
Or whatever, right.
Yeah.
So, and we're close to the point, I think, where get all the numbers together, we can do that.
Yeah, these are all numbers that I pulled together back in November when I
Right.
first started this. This hasn't really been updated. It
Okay.
was just
Yeah,
taking the numbers straight off the DOR and plugging them in and going,
Mhm.
all right, there's generally what we're looking at, but we gotta narrow it down.
yeah.
So for the next meeting, we'll have it narrowed down to
I sure hope so.
If we could get a copy of that.
well, when it
Budget
means something,
sheet.
we don't want a copy of it.
We always
Well,
get
now
them
we got all
before
those
this.
departments budgets in, correct?
The budget sheet, the levy limit thing, whatever you call it,
Well,
whatever you
Master
wanna
sheet.
call it.
the sheet, the worksheet.
Yeah.
The only reason why you guys didn't have a copy of it tonight is because we were working on numbers right before this meeting. And I wanted to try to see what that number
Because
would
we
look
don't-
like if we spoke to
Yeah.
salaries.
You couldn't have.
Because
had
we
it
don't
accurate
even
anyway
know
until we
what-
met tonight, 'cause we
What
didn't
we're
have all
working
that.
with.
I didn't have the school number until we did so.
You never
Reduced that down by
No idea what
$12,000
numbers
the
are.
last time I talked to
We
him.
don't.
No,
Larry,
All
never-
that was all right.
What did you say,
we
Rich?
know the numbers, we see it,
Second.
and it
When the
helps.
next meeting, August
Yeah, next
first,
meeting.
you know?
Not August first.
Yeah, then when's the next
When are
one?
we looking at?
You gotta give these folks a little bit of time to put some
Yeah,
numbers here.
right. Put it together.
Let's say the ninth.
No, we gotta do our,
You didn't adjourn?
Actually, no, sorry.
not yet.
I'm not gonna be here.
That's how everybody.
May 9th.
We're all done.
Oh, that's
We're
it.
waiting for the next meeting.
We're all done, Charlie.
Go home, Charlie.
Can we say the 16th?
Have we got a, this year's, no,
What's
we
the
still don't
one?
have it.
What's the second?
Faye,
Yeah,
can
throw
you
that
get us a
calendar.
calendar?
Throw that calendar away.
Take it down.
We need one up there.
I didn't get one, the bank didn't give us an extra one, so. I'll find one.
It's the war closing the 17th.
We used to have a system for that, that these guys, when we changed
What
boards.
was that,
they-
abacus?
That was me. The calendar, the newest member
Oh.
was supposed to take care of.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
That'll work?
since somewhere, Richie, they let this go. I
Oh,
don't know who would do that.
They did a poor job, I guess.
What day?
16th, and then we'll know what's on.
Six-
Oh, the
16th.
16th.
Yeah.
16th to
May
6th.
16th.
All set.
And we'll
Yeah.
have all the submitted warrant articles.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
And we'll get the levy
Wait a
sheet
minute, we
thing.
adjourned.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
He seconded it. All
We're outta
four,
here.
or, yeah,
Yeah.
four.
Everybody.
See you later, Charlie.
Chariot's leaving.